Why has Israel become so emboldened?
America will take care of them so long as they represent America's interests in the region. The regional rulers, what's their response? Egypt has a peace treaty with Israel. You didn't need to worry about Erdogan. Well, Netanyahu said himself, Erdogan used to curse me once every 6 hours, now he does it once every 3 hours. He knows Erdogan is nothing more than talk. He won't do any action. Iran made it very clear. They said, we're not going to intervene because you didn't inform us that you were doing this operation. Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, he made very clear, if this goes beyond Gaza, then we will intervene. So the Muslim rulers and the groups have washed their hands of it. So if you're Israel, you've got nothing to worry about. Why don't you achieve your agenda, which is you want the whole territory?
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Salatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to Islamic OASIS Live. Dear brothers and sisters, all of us are obviously tuned in to what's happening in Gaza. The Muslims around the world are watching, are in a state of sadness in many ways, trying to figure out why is it that the Ummah is pushed into this situation where it feels as if their hands are tied, the armies are not moving, the rulers are not moving, the streets are moving but without a direction. We know there was a ceasefire, then the war has begun again, maybe close to 300 to 400 people killed just from the day of the ceasefire. That day itself, over 100 people killed, and then just the dead bodies are being just counted on a daily basis. Again, the schools are being everything. There's the whole infrastructure in Khan Yunis is being destroyed and just decimated. Now the question is, what is the plan for this region? Where is this going to go? What is going to happen? And what should the Muslims actually doing and thinking about as this is happening? So to discuss this very important topic at these crucial moments in Islamic and Muslims, the history of the Muslims today, we have our brother Adnan Khan. Many of you know Brother Adnan Khan, who's an author, who's a teacher, who's a political analyst. He's the one who runs GeoPolity, the major new website, discusses many events of the Muslims. He's a writer of the strategic assessments that come out almost on a yearly basis. He's written many books regarding the industrialization of the Muslim world and the path forward for the Muslim world, and so much more. And he's been on this show many a times, and it is an honor to have him on the show. Brother Adnan, welcome to Islamic OASIS again.
Welcome, Salam. Good to be here.
Brother Adnan, so now we are almost the second month of this massacre that's taking place. Are they going to make this whole situation normal? Are they trying to normalize what's happening in the region for the establishment of Greater Israel?
So, I mean, if you look at the language we're seeing, we saw this straight away. The language used by Israelis was of human animals, of bombing them back to a stone age, of dropping a nuclear bomb upon Gaza. So this is all very genocidal. And whilst this may be new for a lot of people, really you find if you look at the history of Israel, really this is a regular theme of the genocidal statements, of pushing the Palestinians into the desert, of the Zionists taking over the whole of historic Palestine. They've actually been pretty clear since the beginning. Their preferred vision of their solution is the people of Gaza are completely pushed into the desert. They go into Egypt, or the Arab rulers around take them. And so Gaza becomes Israeli territory. It becomes their territory. And that's been their vision really since the beginning. Their vision is even the West Bank, although the West Bank is much larger and it's a bit more complicated. Gaza isn't as large. And they've occupied it really for the last 3 decades. So their vision is very clear, it's very dystopian. It's no different to 1948 when they seized territory and expelled the people. That's exactly what they want to do again, part 2.0 in Gaza. And actually, they've been quite open about it. They're not even actually hiding this.
So you can say this is Nakba 2.0.
Yes. In fact, one of the Likud parliamentarians actually said, this is our Pearl Harbor, and we want to do another Nakba again. They're being quite open about this. Obviously, not every Israeli politician is necessarily on the same page, but the general theme and the general direction the Israeli train is going is through Gaza, which is we want the whole land and we're going to kick you out. So this, Hamas is the problem, and the defeat of Hamas will solve this. Well, the facts say something very different. They've dropped more bombs on Gaza in 2 months than what was dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Yeah.
50% of the homes have been reduced to dust. That is not you're in a war with a specific group. That is you're in a war with the whole people. Why would you go to war with the whole people? The only reason could be you don't want them there. And they've been very open about this. Now, not necessarily everyone in the international community agrees with this. America's always had this vision of 2 states. How the West Bank would be a state with Gaza has always been a bit of a question. And actually, this will have regional ramifications. If Israel does this, what's stopping Israel doing this in the West Bank? What's stopping Israel doing this in the north of the country? What's stopping Israel from expanding? What will happen is this will become the solution for Israel in order for it to get security. And you're seeing this. Israel has to do this because of security. It has to do this because it's defending itself. If we don't do this now, the terrorists will keep coming back and again. So their agenda is very clear, which is they want to completely seize the territory and they want to kick all the Gazans into the desert. And it's somebody else's problem. They need to do with it. So you hear Israeli officials keep on saying, why do the Arab rulers not take care of them? Why do they not take them on?
Sheikh, why has Israel become so emboldened? Is it the American has America lost its influence in the Middle East? Is it losing its influence? What do you think that the Israelis have, or the Zionist state has, that is able to push, which could actually make or push America into a war that I don't think America is ready for? I mean,
well, there's two things. There's 2 things here, really. One is Robert Kennedy recently said why Israel is important for America. So I think he's standing up as an independent candidate in the election next year in America. And he says, it's an outpost. It's an aircraft carrier for America. That's always been America's view. Israel is an outpost for them. So America will arm them. America will take care of them so long as they represent America's interests in the region. That's one reason. The main reason is the regional rulers, what's their response? Does Israel need to worry about a response from the rulers? Do they need to worry about a response from Egypt? Well, no, Egypt has a peace treaty with Israel. Do they need to worry about the Jordanian monarchy? No, Jordan normalized relations in 1994. Do they need to worry about the Syrian leader? Well, no, he's got more important things to do within his own country. Do they need to worry about Lebanon? No, Lebanon's got even bigger issues. Do they need to worry about Erdogan? Well, Netanyahu said himself, Erdogan used to curse me once every 6 hours. Now he does it once every 3 hours. Meaning he knows Erdogan is nothing more than talk. He won't do any action. Iran made it very clear. The meeting between Khamenei and Hamas's leaders in Tehran 2 weeks ago, they said, we're not going to intervene because you didn't inform us that you were doing this operation. Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, he made very clear, if this goes beyond Gaza, then we will intervene. So the Muslim rulers and the groups have washed their hands of it. So if you're Israel, you're more powerful than the enemy. Why should you concede? Why should you give an inch? You've got nothing to worry about. Why don't you achieve your agenda, which is you want the whole territory? Because Iran's not going to get in the way. Turkey's not going to get in the way. Egypt's not going to give in the way. So if a bully sees he can do what he wants and no one's going to do anything, what's he going to do? He's got permission to go and do it. And that's what they're doing. So they've got help from America, but yes, America might place some restrictions. But more importantly, even Israel can see the Arab rulers will talk to please their populations, but they will not deliver. So it's 2 months on this. Well, we've gone past 2 months now. What's been the response of the Muslim rulers? Nothing. In fact, the Muslim rulers now in some countries, they're clamping down on the protests because their feeling is these protests which were anti-Israel and pro-Palestinian are now growing into demands against their own rulers who are authoritarian and stuff like that. So they're starting to clamp down upon them now. Even in Jordan, people wanted to go to the border, the military was sent to stop them. So the reason why Israel can do this is the same reason it always has. It's got support from the West, but more importantly, the regional leaders are really in bed with Israel. But they're more, because they're concerned about their own thrones, they only prefer to do fiery speeches against Israel, but never to physically do anything.
So the only thing that, okay, so if we are looking for change as Muslims, then the only solution that we have is that so the only solutions are Islamic movements?
No, we've had movements and some Islamic who have tried to address the Palestinian issue. So you had the Palestinian Liberation Organization. Okay, that wasn't Islamic, but it was a movement to try and liberate Palestine. They very quickly realized that they just don't have the firepower against Israel. And also they're a group, they're not a state. And once Egypt normalized relations, they realized without Arab support from the Arab leaders, they won't really be able to impact Israel. So in the end, they compromised. They've been negotiating with Israel. Hamas came along in the 1980s when people lost hope in the Palestinian Authority. And eventually then Hamas realized it could hurt Israel, but it can't remove Israel. It can't liberate historic Palestine. So even by 2017, even they changed their charter to let's talk about the 1967 borders and these sort of things. So movements are only there because the surrounding Arab rulers decided to throw their lot in with Israel. However, we've had wars in the past, and Israel talks about these wars. It talks about the 48 war, the 56 war, the 67 war, the 73 war. And Israel realized, and every year they do annual assessments of the military capabilities of the militaries around them. And their conclusion is there is more than enough sufficient military might in the surrounding countries that if they went to war with Israel, Israel will be annihilated. So their strategy, they have to make sure there's never a war. They have to either launch a war before, or they need to have relationship with the countries where war is not an option. So they recognize this. And in our countries, we've had coups. You know, Egypt, the military is in power. The Al-Assad family is in power because they did a coup back in the day. So really, the obstacle is our rulers. Our rulers are more interested in preserving their borders. So really, the military, they need to move. And if the military leadership is not the right military,
when you say preserving,
if the military leadership is not the right military, then officers in the army who are sincere need to remove them.
So, Sheikh, when we talk about the rulers themselves are concerned about their thrones, and now you have, obviously, the streets are full of anger. Are they not worried that, you know, not giving it the proper response might actually get them out of power anyway? I mean, if they're how are they calculating? So that's why, I guess what I'm asking you is how are these rulers calculating when they look at the anger on the streets? Are they saying that is this anger enough to get rid of us, or obviously they're channeling that anger? I understand that, but how does this work? I mean, I guess let me put this way. If the Israelis have realized that, okay, look, we need to have enough, the relationships have to be built in such a way that we don't go into war. But at the same time, on the other hand, the rulers are worried about their thrones being shaken. But if they don't go to war, that's another threat to the rulers because the streets are angry.
Yeah, so the rulers are really stuck in between a problem of their own creation. So they have their masters in London, Washington, and Paris. They've got to keep them happy. Their masters want them to preserve Israel. On the other hand, you've got their own streets where people are calling for action and they have to manage public opinion. That's why you find most of the Muslim countries supported the protests against Israel when it first started. As weeks have gone on, other things have crept into the protests. So people are not happy with their rulers. They're not happy with the economy in Egypt. Now they've got a problem, which they realize, hold on, these protests are now turning against us. So you find in Egypt, in Jordan, they're starting to clamp down upon protesters now. They're stopping protests actually happening. People are being thrown into prison. Israel doesn't care about the Muslim rulers. It would care if the Muslim rulers do something. Its priority is itself. Its priority is getting the territory. And for the moment, Israel doesn't have to worry about the West. And it doesn't have to worry about the rulers. The rulers, you know, their view is so narrow that their sole concern is about themselves. You're right, in the long run, they're digging their own graves. Gaddafi probably never thought he'd ever get overthrown. He'd been in power 40 years. Yeah. In the end, his end came, they pulled him out of a sewage pipe. That's where his end came from. So however strong the leaders look today, the Arab Spring showed us 10, 11 years ago, this can change very quickly. You saw it start in Tunisia and it spread. And the conditions that led to the Arab Spring, they are not just there today, they are far worse. The economic situation in Egypt is far worse. The economic situation in Tunisia is far worse. The Arab rulers, the Gulf rulers, keep throwing money at their public to keep them happy. Yeah, in Saudi Arabia, if you talk against MBS, if you talk against normalization, you get thrown into prison or you get cut up and murdered like Jamal Khashoggi was. So the Arab rulers, what they're doing is they're trying to let the people let off steam about Palestine because they know there's a public opinion issue. On the other hand, so they allow them to do this so they can control it, they can manage it. That's what their strategy is. But remember, if the Gazans are kicked into Egypt, if Israel comes across that we don't care about the Palestinian people, this will have a direct impact on the Muslim rulers because their people are demanding action. And if the rulers don't move, what you'll find, there'll be discontent within the army when they see them. So really, we need to be out every week. We need to be questioning the armies. Why are you not moving? The ruler needs to feel he's under pressure. The ruler needs to feel he needs to close down the internet because some officer in the army might get a funny idea. That's the level it actually needs to be. You know, Sisi, 2-3 weeks into the war, he gave a speech to new cadets who joined the Egyptian army. And he gave the speech behind a glass wall.
But, you know, he's been doing that since the revolution in Egypt.
Because he's worried. I mean, if you're that strong a leader, why are you so worried? Remember, yeah, Anwar Sadat was watching a parade and he was assassinated. Sisi doesn't want to go down like that. But why are you worried about your life? You're worried about your life because you know you're an authoritarian leader who the people hate. So the way you maintain your seat is by iron grip. And iron grips, as strong as they are, in the long term, you're a loser. So it's funny, in Egypt, they've got elections coming up in January, yeah?
Yeah, he's supposed, yeah.
What they're working on, they need to create a token opposition to make it look legitimate. So it looks as though what they'll do, they'll force the election to go to a second round, which Sisi will win. Just to show that, look, it was a proper election. We did allow you to get involved, but Sisi is more popular. Yeah? But Sisi will win the election. In the long run, he will only lose.
Sheikh, you mentioned the Arab Spring here. What is the Arab Spring in relation to Israel? I mean, what effects did the Arab Spring have on what is taking place in Gaza today, if any?
No, so the Arab Spring didn't necessarily have an impact on the Palestinian question. What it did do was it created a massive issue for Israel. Israel, interestingly, came out in the open and said, we're really worried about the uprising in Egypt. They even said, and the intelligence officers came out, that they're worried about the uprising in Syria. You think, why are you worried about Syria? Surely you're happy that Bashar al-Assad family might get removed. And the intelligence agencies were saying, no, we're not happy. meaning the most secure border of Israel is actually the Syrian border. The Al-Assad family has protected that border with Israel since its creation. So Israel likes the current setup. Israel doesn't want it to change. Israel doesn't want the Muslim Brotherhood to be in power, because then the Muslim Brotherhood will support other groups in the region, and that will give a voice to the Palestinian people. So what Israel wants is a status quo to maintain. What's the status quo? Arab rulers criticize Israel in public. In private, they communicate, they coordinate, and they normalize. That's perfect for Israel. Israel doesn't want that to change.
But can somebody ask can't someone say that, well, if Israel wants this status quo, then the status quo in the long run is against Israel also?
Look, their view is for them to survive.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you next. I mean, so this shows how weak Israel really is in the region, Sheikh. That it's
absolutely.
That it's just
so if you look at
survival
it, if you look at it, Sheikh, yeah. So if you look at it, they've done a really good, we call it information war, where they've created this mirage. We're really powerful. We're really industrious. You don't want to mess with us, right? So that's why if you kidnap one Israeli, we will kill 1,000 of your people. We will be disproportionate. That's to make sure you never go to war with them, because if you go to war with them, they're not in a position to fight. So do you remember beginning of in the early days, there was talk, if Hezbollah opens a front in the north, if Hamas open a front in the south, Israel's overstretched. And then Nasrallah came out and made it clear, we're not going to intervene. That was music to their ears.
Yeah.
So what it is we've got to differentiate here between...
Did they already not know that Hezbollah is not going to intervene? Or they don't trust Hezbollah? Or is it...
No, they don't trust. Although they have back channel links and talks, they don't trust them. Right? And also, from an Israeli perspective, if the Iranian leadership criticizes you but never does anything, that doesn't mean they're always going to do that. They may always criticize you, and you may say it's only talk, they're never going to do anything. But that's what happened in 1973. In 1973, Anwar Sadat had a good relationship with Israel. They were normalizing relations, and then he went to war with them. So their view is we can't trust these people. And the number one example they give you is the most closest ally Israel had in its history was Iran under the Shah. They were so close. Yeah. There's pictures online of intelligence officers from Iran sitting in Tel Aviv. The head of Mossad is in Tehran. That's how close the relationship was. There was a Jewish community in Iran. And then it all changed after 1979. So they don't take anything for granted. They literally, Sheikh, they're on survival mode. They don't take anything for granted. So whenever there's a war, if you look at all the reviews of the Gaza wars, the Lebanon wars, they are very scathing of their performance. Very scathing. Because, their view is one loss is the end of Israel. Every war is existential for them. So Sheikh, that's their view. Yeah. Externally, though, they do a very good job of information warfare, propaganda warfare. We're the victims, they're the aggressors. We want peace. We're in a defensive war. Hamas has got tunnels. We know we bombed a hospital, but we had intelligence. Hamas was in there. Hamas have human shields. What they do is they get involved in the propaganda stuff. Our countries, Egypt is more powerful than Israel. Turkey is more powerful than Israel. Even the Israelis know it. But our countries are very poor at projecting themselves. So they have the capabilities. They have the resources, but they don't know how to play the political game. And that's one of the reasons is because they don't want to play that game. They're more interested in keeping their own throne. They're more interested in making money. They're more interested in their tribe being the rulers of the country. Saudi Arabia in 1973, King Faisal, he said, we are going to stop supplying oil to the top 5 countries because of what they're doing in Palestine. And he did. And oil went through the roof. Yeah, they call it the oil quadrupled at the time. So we've got that tool. 50% of Israeli oil is coming through Turkey. We got that tool and it's not being used. Egypt shares a border. Egypt could say we're opening up the Rafah border. In fact, the Muslim rulers could say, we're going to arm the Palestinians. Because Israel's killing civilians, we're going to arm the civilians of Palestine in order for them to defend themselves.
Mm.
These are very simple things you can do, but they're not. So they are in the weak position. However, they do a good job of promoting themselves to be in the stronger position. But you have to look at Israel's domestic politics, because they do reviews and they're quite open about how they feel. What they project globally is very different to what they project domestically. But even many Israelis are saying, how on earth will 7th of October, how did that happen? We were told by Netanyahu, we were told by the intelligence, they've got security under wraps. Israel is secure, and the 7th of October happened. On the 6th of October, Netanyahu was saying that this is the most peaceful the Middle East has been for a long time. Saudi Arabia, the Sunni leader, was normalizing relations. And then everything changed on 7th of October. So Israel knows it's in a weak position. But what do our rulers do? Israel's too powerful. I remember Yasser Arafat, when he was alive, he used to say, Israel's got nuclear weapons, we can't do anything. So he washed his hands off it. But then Hamas and the Palestinian groups do what they did on 7th of October. So, Israel doesn't take things for granted. It knows what the reality is. And also, Israel is in a battle which is beyond its capabilities. You've got 400 million plus Muslims in the region. The Israelis are 9 million population, and half of that is Muslim. They need Western aid. They need Western support. They need the Muslim rulers to keep their population back. If that balance changes even a little bit, Israel's finished. And they know that, and they're quite open about that.
Sheikh, this situation with but do you think that the Gaza situation, it will get where the Muslims from Gaza will be pushed into Sinai? Is that now this is now the plan, or?
It looks more and more likely, because what you find is, the ceasefire. Remember what Israel did? It said to all the people in the north of Gaza, you need to go to the south. Right? Now they started the war on the south.
Yeah.
But that was the agenda all along. And I remember Bashar al-Assad did the same thing. He made deals in different areas. All of them were told to go to Idlib. In fact, the Syrian government provided the coaches to get them to Idlib in the north. And then eventually, when they were all there, they bombed them all. Yeah? They're doing the same thing. Look, Israel's not hiding what it wants to do. It's being very open. We want to push you into the desert. It's not our problem. And they're doing it. They're carrying it out.
So how can...
So it's not there's some secret thing going on here. Let's analyze it. They're quite open what they want to do.
But that's what I'm asking you, Sheikh, here. What I'm asking, what again, so that means that Egypt know that this was coming. Was Egypt aware of this? I mean, I've heard no. New York Times article saying that this plan was, at least Israel actually knew about this plan for almost a year. There was, I guess, some type of
the attack, you mean? The attack, yes. The attack on Israel.
Yes. So so now let's say if they are pushed into Sinai, what role does Egypt play?
Well, if they're pushed into Sinai, now they're Egypt's problem. And Egypt has said they don't want them in Sinai. Egypt said we don't want them. Egypt and Jordan have said we don't want these Palestinians.
Right.
This is the type of rulers we've got. But Israel doesn't care. When Israel does something, sometime it may ask. Most of the time it doesn't care. Why does Israel need to ask when it's got America supporting it? Like, this is not an equal marriage, Israel and the surrounding country. This is it's a marriage where the leader, the man Israel, is doing domestic abuse with everybody else, doesn't care what they think. Right? So the problem Sisi's got is he has to be seen to be helping the Palestinians. He doesn't want all of the Gaza in Israel, but Israel's probably going to do that. And there's nothing much it can do, right?
But is that a security issue for Egypt?
Well, not really. I mean, look, if me and you lived in Gaza, we've lost our homes. What are you going to do? You want to go somewhere else where you can live, you can work, you can settle your family. Why would there be a security issue? I'd be kicked out. The Gazan people have been kicked out of their land anyway. They went to Gaza, and now they'll be kicked out a second time from Gaza. I mean, if anything, these people are probably going to have mental health issues. They're going to probably need help. There's no security issue. The only security issue is Israel. Israel's taking. What do you think Israel's going to do once it takes over Gaza? Is it going to stop there? I remember
That's
Israel
what I was
took over
thinking.
the
That
Sinai.
you could say that there was another attack from Sinai into Israel because now,
Oh yeah, perfect.
and then it will go
yeah,
into.
Yeah, yeah.
So are you? That's what I'm asking you. Can Egypt actually be secure from Israeli expansion into
No. So
Sinai?
we see this. Israel. We saw
Sinai
this
was
in
taken by Israel
1967.
before, so it's not a new thing. It could come
In the 1967 war.
Mm.
In the 67 war, Israel launched a unilateral strike. Its border went all the way to the Suez Canal. It went all the way across there, and it went all the way to the Golan Heights. The Israelis were so arrogant, they said, we are now the regional power. We don't even need America anymore. Right? And that agenda is still there. That's why the right wing who are in government, they want, was it the Nile to the Euphrates? That's their ultimate vision. Yeah. So yeah, take them time. So they're not going to stop at that. Yeah. You know, this is why many people call for a ceasefire, and I understand it if you're there. What did Israel do during the ceasefire? Israel's not rethinking their strategy. Israel's not thinking we're bad. Israel's getting ready to take over the rest of south of Gaza. So now they're saying to people in South Gaza, you need to move out of the Khan Yunis area. Yeah. Where are they going to go now? You sent them from the north to the south. Where do you think? So what they're effectively doing is, even if they don't bomb them, you can't live there. It's not safe. Most of the infrastructure is gone. You're going to have to move. Right? So if Egypt was more long-term in its thinking, they will take these people, take care of them, arm them, build them, and send them back.
See, Sheikh, I remember this question was happening even at the Rohingya time, when if Bangladesh could have actually done that, where it would have taken the Rohingya refugees in and trained them and send them back against Burma, or even have some type of a plan, have some type of influence in the region with China also, because you would take in 1 million people, and even heck, you train half of them, you would have influence in the region. But again, that comes if you actually have any vision in the region. So
their vision doesn't go, in Bangladesh, their vision doesn't go beyond their borders. And secondly, they don't even view the Rohingya as their own people. They view the Rohingya as ethnically different, and Bangladesh is a state for Bengalis. It was quite brutal what the ruler did. She said, we have no space, we can't take them. It's the UN's problem. So and the UN, the interviewer was asking Sheikh Hasina, but they're Muslim and you're Muslim. And she's like, no, they're not our people. Yeah, you haven't seen that from the Arab rulers. Can't say that to the Palestinians because public opinion doesn't allow them. But their actions, they do that. The fact that Jordan and Egypt are saying, no, we don't want them. Yeah, it shows you. And remember, Jordan, majority of its population is Palestinians who are refugees.
That's what it seems like. Obviously it is. And it seems like Abu Ubaidah, the commander of Hamas, keeps talking to Jordan. When he's talking to them, Sheikh, what I've never heard Abu Ubaidah say get rid of or topple the regime, Jordanian regime, or I've never. So what does he want? What is he wanting the people to say? Is just make a mess in the streets and just keep standing with us somehow?
Also, Hamas, much like in some way they're similar to the Taliban, in some way they're very different. Both groups were involved in a liberation battle. The difference was with Afghanistan, you had global powers who invaded, and eventually they were defeated. The problem you got in Palestine is you got foreigners, European Jews, but they've settled there now. And they're trying to do this slow motion expulsion of the indigenous people. So you're in a colonial struggle there, where the people physically live there. So obviously, Hamas, you've got to remember, in the past, it was started by leaders of Muslim Brotherhood. They've got support from Iran in the past. And then then they got support from Syria. Then when the Syrian uprising started, they didn't join Iran and Syria to support Bashar al-Assad. And then during that time, they reached out to Qatar. Qatar started. So for Qatar, I think it's their number one finance at the moment. So they've got the challenge every group has, which is because you're not a government, you need funding, you need arms. So that's why you find they're always talking to different regimes. And What regimes do is,
Khalid Mishal was sitting in Damascus during the time of this at least the first 2 years of the revolution.
Yeah.
And he was looking the other way as if nothing is happening. And then I think he moved to Qatar and then he said, we are with the revolution.
Yeah. So Hezbollah threw in their lot with Bashar al-Assad. Hamas didn't. Hamas didn't at the time. However, unfortunately, look,
but you're saying that Hamas could have actually gone in to fight the revolutionaries inside Syria?
They wanted to. No, they took a stand that I mean they took a stand, isn't it? That we're not going to be part of it. Look, the relationship between Iran and Hamas is a bit different to Iran and Hezbollah. Hezbollah was started by the Revolutionary Guards. It's been established as a coherent, organized organization, and now they are the state in Lebanon. They can run on their own. They can support other groups. They can go against Iran if they want, but the relationship is very, very close. Hamas was a bit different. Hamas was started by members of Muslim Brotherhood from Egypt, so Khalid Yassin. And from there, it's always tried to get some support, but it's been a Palestinian-based movement in a struggle with the occupier. You don't see Hamas go to other areas to fight. They didn't go to Bosnia. They didn't go to Afghanistan. They don't go to Burma. Hezbollah get involved in other issues. That's their role. So they're a bit different like that. So the challenge when you're a group is always going to be finance and arms and equipment. You're not a government. You don't have access to industry. You don't have access to minerals. So that's why you can't make a comparison in the battle between Hamas and Israel. Israel is a state industrial power, industries, foreign support. That is not that is not Hamas. Hamas is it's a group which has got some authority in Gaza, but even in Gaza, it's had many differences with the other groups there.
And they're trying to show that Islamic Jihad and others are, I think, Saraya
the problem is Hamas won the election. Now you're the ruler. And obviously the problem is you're the ruler of a prison. You don't control what goes in and out of the prison. So Israel does.
Internally,
you're the ruler.
Right. Internally within Gaza, what is the reality between I mean, I saw some videos, obviously, that I think the Islamic Jihad and Hamas and others are coming together, and they're at least they're showing that they're united. But it seems like Islamic Jihad is not on the same page as Hamas at all. Actually.
So because they're being attacked, you're always going to get some unity when you're under invasion. You saw that in Afghanistan. Despite all the difference between the different factions, they come together when there's a foreign occupier. The moment the foreign occupier goes, they start fighting each other. So what you find is Hamas won the election. They kicked out the Palestinian Authority. And then what you find is Israel, it really tightened the noose around Gaza. They started controlling what goes in and out, to the point Israel even decides how many calories each person can get. It literally is a prison. Yeah. So you're the rulers now. We voted for you. And now I'm starving and there's no electricity and there's no goods. I'm going to hold you accountable. You're the leader. So eventually, when there were some protests, Hamas clamped down on them quite harshly. Some of the groups got a bit organized against Hamas and they clamped down on them. They threw them a lot into prison. So a lot of differences did emerge over time. So what you've got here is...
I mean, they killed the members of other organizations.
Yeah, so if me and you are not Hamas, we're another group. You've got Israel, which is a problem. And then you've got Hamas, which is a potential problem. So this is the challenge you've got there. But remember, Gaza is not a proper territory. It's not independent. It doesn't even control what goes in and out. So we can't view it as, when they say Hamas is the leader, yeah, but Hamas is the leader of a prison. Who controls the prison?
Sheikh,
they try to make it out, though, the way it's made out in the media, they're democratically elected, they control everything. They say the Hamas-run health ministry, we can't trust the figures that come out for them. Yeah, but the whole land is controlled by Israel. Even, the telephone masts. When you make a phone call, it connects to a telephone mast and then it connects you. There's no telephone masts in Gaza. They're all outside Gaza. So they're controlled and run by Israel. Every email, every phone call, every text message, it goes through Israeli servers. That's the level of control Israel has. So who are really the rulers of Gaza? Hamas or the Israelis? Who really has the power? They literally can decide what goes in and what goes out.
So now let's go to the future of Gaza. it seems like to somehow maintain, or at least maintain the influence of PA, or Palestinian Authority, PLO at the time, they had to create Hamas. Hamas came together, it seems like in 1980s.
Yeah.
Sheikh Rantisi, Sheikh Khalid Ras Yassin, these are the founders. And now Hamas, when you're looking at statements coming out of the United States, at least the press secretaries and stuff like that, they're saying that, look, the Gaza now will be without Hamas. Now, so the discussion is security of Gaza. If there is anything, if there's anything left in Gaza and the people are not moved out to Sinai, security of the Gaza will be either in the hands of the Zionists, which it already has in many ways. Now, if, let's say, the people don't move out of that region, Hamas cannot be present there. That's part of what they're saying, that, in order for this war to stop, because then Israel looks like it did not win the war. So now what happens? There's a third group that comes into existence. PA has no authority in reality. It has no influence. It cannot come in there. It will look like it will look like a joke if it comes in. So now what happens?
Yeah. So there's quite a few things being thrown around what happens post-Hamas, yeah? So I feel what they're doing, they're testing the waters. What's acceptable,
do you
what's
believe
not
there will be a
acceptable.
post-Hamas?
So for all practical purposes, there won't be. The problem is when Israel says they're effectively saying our objective is to finish Hamas. And by finishing Hamas, we've solved the security problem in Gaza, right? That's firstly absolute nonsense, because the liberation battle existed before Hamas, it existed during Hamas, and it will continue with or without Hamas. Even if Hamas isn't around, the people in Gaza and the Muslims in Palestine will organize the resistance. So this is just absolute nonsense. When you ask Israeli officials, you've killed 15,000 people, your goal is to destroy Hamas. How many of those 15,000 are Hamas? They can never give you a figure.
Right.
If you killed, I doubt Hamas even has 15,000 members anyway.
Oh,
right?
They're giving
but
numbers
let's just say
from 15 to 40,000.
Yeah, remember, Israel's a participant in the war. It's in their interest to give everything from their perspective.
Right.
And same with Hamas. Hamas is a participant in the war. So naturally, they would give everything from their perspective. So we do need to verify everything they both say.
Right.
We're in the middle of a war. In the middle of a war, you don't say loads of your people are dying. You say you're winning. So that's why you always have to verify. So I'm not just saying this about Israel, but Israel has a history of lying anyway.
Obviously, I think people are seeing that even more now than,
Yeah, they killed the Al Jazeera journalist, and for 6 months they said it wasn't us until they admitted it. Yeah, they say, we're humane and all that. You've seen the pictures. You've seen Israeli hostages going home, and you see Palestinian hostages going home. You see the big difference.
Right.
Israeli hostages are being given gifts. They're thanking their handlers. They're smiling.
Right.
The Muslim Palestinian hostages are coming. They're in bandages. Yeah. Reading one sister, she was 28 years old. 8 years she was in prison for what? Don't know. Never told me.
Yeah.
That's a scenario where we have it.
10,000 children in jail, it seems.
Yeah, and these are on administrative detention, which is a hostage. They're not even under, they don't even get a normal, come under normal law. So what you're finding is a few things are being thrown around. So yes, you've got the Palestinian Authority, right? Which is interesting, but up until now, Israel has been lambasting the Palestinian Authority that they're useless. Now all of a sudden, or maybe there is a possibility, right? Netanyahu has been saying that they will run Gaza. And he's come across quite a bit of opposition for this. So his own officials are saying, no, we're not. And actually, the Defense Secretary and Antony Blinken in America have criticized him for this. So that probably indicates to you that, no, America doesn't see that happening, right? They don't necessarily see that. Doesn't necessarily mean they're dead against it. It could change. Then you've got the Arab rulers, potentially Egypt. They, under some organization, are involved in the running and the logistics of the Gaza Strip. Right? No talk at the moment. What do the Palestinians want? No talk of even Palestinians being at the table to discuss this. So the solution to Gaza has been taken out of the hands of the Gazan people. Much like the solution to Syria, many summits, the Syrians, most of them were not at these. They had no say in
That's
it.
wanna
So
talk.
these solutions are being thrown out. And what I think they're doing is everyone's trying to see, what's the public sentiment towards these. So, with these sort of things, what you do, you always throw something extreme because then you could sell someone something less extreme. So let's see. So obviously, look, whatever, the PA, you're right. If the Palestinian Authority take over, it basically means Israel destroyed Hamas, the leadership they elected in Gaza, and now Israel's giving the keys to you. So basically, you're here for Israel. You're not here for the people. So it would look really, really bad. Secondly, Gaza, PA, I think they're in Ramallah.
Right.
They barely have any control in Ramallah. What on earth are they going to do in Gaza?
No, I remember I was in Ramallah. I was attending a Salatul Jum'ah, and the sheikh that was giving the khutbah, he was with me. So I went with him for the khutbah. He was giving the khutbah in the masjid there. So he told me, if I get arrested after this khutbah, please, these brothers will take you back to Jerusalem. And that was meaning that even the Palestinian Authority was arresting scholars, arresting anyone that was speaking against PA. But Sheikh, so now, what's the deal then? Obviously, they're not, Israel will never accept foreign, I heard, I think it was a foreign minister from Jordan saying that there'll be no Arab troops inside because they will look like the enemy to kind of protect Israel.
Yeah, this thing, there's two things we have to look at here is you've got what Israel wants, then you've got the power in the region, America, what they want. And what you're seeing is it's going to be somewhere in between there. The Arab rulers don't get a say. They're told what needs to be done, or they're pushed and they do it. The Arab rulers don't even propose. Erdogan, for example, he's put no proposals forward. Right?
Yeah, he keeps saying humanitarian, and that's all. It seems like that's the most that they can talk about.
What will happen is there will be two solutions put on the table. You've got the Israeli one, which is we want the whole land, or we're going to run it ourselves. Then you'd have the American one, and the American will probably involve the surrounding leaders. It will involve the surrounding countries. At the moment, what Israel's trying to do is do the groundwork to achieve its solution. So let me massacre the people.
On that issue, Sheikh, if you look at what the United States did with Kashmir, with the 370 or 370A kind of thing, where khalas, let's divide the land, give this to Pakistan, whatever, and then give this to United States, remove the autonomy, give it to India, remove the autonomy, give Indians complete control of this side of Kashmir, things like that, so that, again, the United States can use India against China, move its military from this area to the Chinese border. They figured out a solution, what to do for their own interest against China. Now, in this region here, can this be a final solution for what they want to achieve? Remove the Golan, this area, West Bank, into Jordan, remove the Gazans into Egypt, finish them, wipe them out, remove them, go wherever the heck it is that you think you can go, but you're not here in this region anymore. But if they do that, can there? What is Israel seeing a long-term peace plan with this, saying that okay, now we can breathe? Are the United States, do they think that they can breathe with this plan?
No. So at the moment, Sheikh, America's attention is largely towards the Far East. The emerging challenge to America is China.
Right.
So what America needs is a stable, quiet Middle East. Right? So Israel's got a window of opportunity before America starts imposing. And that window of opportunity is probably a year because they've got elections.
Yeah.
Once elections are, I think by the end of February, early March, we know who the two, it's going to be Biden, and it probably looks like it's going to be Trump. So we're going to have a rerun of the last election.
Which is a very interesting time.
So from that point onwards, what you're going to find, both of them are going to want Zionist support. So what you're going to find is they are going to publicly support Israel. Privately, this is a long-term problem. If America's strategy has always been that you partition Palestine in whatever shape. So Israel has some, and the Palestinians have some. And there's a balance there where Israel can't do what it wants because Israel has a security threat. On the other hand, the security threat is there, but not to the point where it threatens Israel's existence. America needs to stabilize this, because how are you going to be fighting in the Middle East? At the moment, I mean, I was reading today, Ukraine is worried that they're going to stop getting weapons because all of them are going to Israel at the moment.
Yeah.
And if Taiwan kicks off,
it's a bloodbath going on.
America's got three wars to fight. Yeah,
so
again,
then you bring up another issue, Sheikh. Now you talk about the Far East, you're talking about Central Asia. So Russians can make a move. I mean, can you say that Americans are winning in Ukraine even?
So we are coming up to the 2-year anniversary.
Right.
And Russia had a bad start to the war. But since then, Russia has adapted. It's made changes. And we can now say Russia's on top.
Right.
The Ukrainians launched a counteroffensive earlier this year, and it's completely failed. And actually, the Europeans are now getting war fatigue. They've had enough. They feel that by giving more weapons, it won't alter the balance in Ukraine. And in fact, now we know, since Israel started, the Americans and the Europeans are saying to Zelensky, you need to start talks, you need to start negotiations.
Right.
And remember, Putin mobilized 300,000 extra troops last year. He hasn't even deployed them in the war.
Yeah.
If Putin wants, he could deploy them and they could take more territory from Ukraine. Right? At the moment, 20% of Ukraine is occupied by Putin, by Russia. If they start talking now, the position they're going to start from is the 20% Russia has, you ain't getting back. So really, they are not in the right position. So Ukraine's completely gone the other way. Yeah, Ukraine's completely gone the other direction. From great start by Ukraine, by a lot of support by the West, now it's gone the other way. The advantage in Russia's hands. And you've got election there next year. Like, Biden can't be busy with wars. He's got to be on the election campaign. He's got to be showing we're really positive about the war. So, and you've also got elections in Taiwan next year. And it looks as though the anti-Chinese party is going to win. So that leaves China with only one option to deal with Taiwan, which is the military option. The economic option, the social option, the party that's pro-China isn't looking like it's going to win. So really, next year, you've got quite a few things that can affect the balance of power in the world. They potentially, whoever the leaders of this country, you've got some big issues to actually deal with. And look, for the moment, the struggle in Palestine all began in Israel's favor. It doesn't mean it can't go the other way. It doesn't mean Hezbollah might not join tomorrow.
Like if it goes
it doesn't mean a rogue officer from the army decides enough is enough, I'm going to do something. So there's a number of things that could completely mess up the whole landscape.
So you have, China has an excuse to go after Taiwan, and U.S. can't say anything. I mean, the kind of bloody things that they have done in this region. So, Sheikh,
if there's one lesson China needs to learn, and we've seen it now. When Russia went into Ukraine, they threw international law at Russia. When Israel massacres more people than Russia, international law has been abandoned at the drop of a hat. So China shouldn't be worried about international law, because international law is like a shirt. You put it on when you want to, you take it off when you want to. Yeah. Obviously, China's got its own dynamics that it's going to do. The thing for America is their eyes and their resources are dealing with 3 issues. How many issues are you going to do with your America? You've only got a certain amount of military equipment. In fact, interestingly, the military equipment that was going to Ukraine isn't new military equipment. It's from existing stocks. So those stocks, as they deplete, America will need to ramp up production. And now you've got a war in Palestine. So what they're doing now with the stuff that's supposed to go to Ukraine, they're saying, give that to Israel. This isn't new war material that's being created. So these stocks of missiles, they're reducing American stocks. America will have to replace them. So if Taiwan kicks off...
The Americans, as far as America is concerned, why can't they look at this thing? Maybe they are, I don't know, as if, this is, they're making money from both Israel and they're making money in Ukraine through Europeans. And the issue, I'm sure the Arabs are giving them money for the weapons that they're issuing to Israel.
Well, interestingly, I was reading the Washington Post yesterday. and they were saying that, the aid that America's given to Ukraine, the aid doesn't leave America. The aid is what Ukraine uses to pay for the arms. So you're right, American defense industry is benefiting from it. The politicians that are saying no more money to Ukraine are the politicians from areas, states that benefit the most from Ukrainian aid. This is same in Egypt. You know the money America gives to Egypt? The money never leaves America. That money is what Egypt uses to pay for the arm that it buys. So yeah, there are some people. I mean, look, there are people who made money from World War One, World War Two.
Of course.
There are companies that made money from the Gulf War and these wars, yeah? However, there is a strategic geopolitical aspect to this as well, which is although these guys are making money, you are getting weaker globally. There are other countries that are getting more confident. So there's a geopolitical element as well. You've got the economic element side as well. Because remember, if there's a war, I'm an arms company, I'm going to make arms for both sides. I'm making money. But if I want my country to be the strong, so this is what they did with the Iran-Iraq war. They supported both sides. In fact, they said America's interest is none of them win. They both weaken each other. Obviously, that's not the case. They want one side to win, but they don't want Israel to win where they destroy the Palestinians. What they need is a balance there. And you've got election next year. You need to be seen to be supporting Israel because for the evangelical Christians where you are, Israel is an issue for them. They support Israel. So there's a lot of and we're talking about the things we know. What about the black swans that might happen that we don't know about yet? What if threats emerge we don't know about yet? And in international global politics, you have to accept things can occur beyond your control. Things are always in a flux. So yeah, we looked at China, we've looked at Russia, we've looked at Iran, we've looked at the regional rulers. There are still other things which are unknown that can happen.
Sheikh,
America's view is they will adapt.
If you are, inshallah, this will be the last question here to you. If, United States, let's say, so the Gazans really now have no options. They are at the mercy of whatever decisions are made by the players in the region. Now, when you talk about black swans, you are talking about role of a general that goes rogue, or are you saying the role of, movements, Islamic or non, who are just saying that is this? How does a general go rogue? I mean, look, because general going rogue, from what I've seen, is that even coups usually there's a lot of foreigners involved, meaning as far as foreign powers are involved sometimes in these coups. As far as what happened in Turkey, I mean, what China can be involved in a general going rogue. Who can be involved, or is it? It could be independent. I understand that, but independent with what can he go rogue?
So that's one side of a black swan event. The other thing you have to take account of: America is deeply polarized. American officials are worried that if Donald Trump doesn't win the election next year, half the electorate won't accept the result. America could have domestic issues, which means they can't deal with international issues now. In fact, international issues are not important anymore. They've got domestic issues. Early last year, 4 retired generals wrote in the Washington Post that they're afraid if Donald Trump doesn't win the next election, the army might do something about it. Elements in the army. I remember, the Capitol Hill riots, they were serving army officers part of the riots.
Right. Right. This is...
these black swans, 10 years ago, this is conspiratorial.
When you say
now
black
this
swans,
is a reality.
But when you say black swans, you're not just saying black swans, meaning there could be a mutiny within the army in the Muslim world, or there could be some type of you're saying even in the powers at B,
yes,
there is unsettled issues that need to be resolved.
Yeah. I mean, look, if Russia decides we want more of Ukraine, that completely messes America up, because America's just shifted all its supply line to Israel.
But Sheikh, let me ask you, why don't you think the Chinese...
That's a massive problem for them.
Why isn't any other world power like China looking at this weakness of America and going with Russia and saying, make that move? Or is it China is not looking at that, or they're just saying that we can't make it?
The problem with China is firstly, their focus, despite what we see in the media, despite how powerful they are, and they've come a long way, China still views it's got to secure itself in its own region. The fact that Taiwan, 100 miles from the mainland, is not under their control,
Right.
that's a big issue for them.
Yeah.
How can they be thinking the other side of the world
Right.
when an island they can see is not even under their control? So they've come a long way, because remember, China was in mass poverty 40 years ago. It's come a long way.
Right.
And because China economically has developed so much, it engages with the world, it buys commodities from Africa, Latin America, oil from the Middle East. It uses this to turn into final goods. These goods then end up in the West. It's an industrial monster. And people are like, wow, like they're becoming a power. And absolutely they are. But they are, you know, when we look at the map of the world, you look at China, what you see is China, and then you see Russia, Central Asia. That's how we see China. China doesn't look at the world like that. China turns the map upside down. What they see is Japan. What they see is the Philippines. And what they see is what's called Indochina. That's how they see the world. They don't see beyond the horizon, America, all of that. That until they don't control that region, the South China Sea, they are not doing anything beyond that. Right?
Yes.
And one of the biggest threats in that region is America. Because America arms and supports Japan, arms and supports South Korea, arms and supports Vietnam, arms and supports Australia. So their view is very regional at the moment. Now, you're absolutely right. If you want to deal with America, you should create problems for America in other parts of the world. If you don't create problems for America, America will continue providing problems for you in your region. The problem with China is it just doesn't have that power. It gets oil from Saudi Arabia, but it knows Saudi Arabia is with America. It has a good, deep relationship with Iran, but it can't provide anything to Iran. Iran's too far away from China. China has deep economic relations with Africa. But most of the rules in Africa are close to France, close to Britain, and close to America. They're not,
So, Sheikh, when the BRIC thing happened, when Saudis supposedly, I don't even know what that really means, because I don't even think that they have that kind of. When they tried to join, well, they did join BRICS against the US. I mean, did America? Well, it seems like Saudis actually asked the Americans before even they did that.
Look, you've got to look at it like this. One of the ways America dealt with the Soviet Union. Soviet Union is a massive country. It's got the Soviet bloc. And America realized that, look, it's too big, it's too powerful. So one of the things America did was it got its own allies to join the Soviet bloc in order to weaken it from the inside. So this is what the role of Egypt and Syria was. Their role was to have good relations with the Soviet Union and force the Soviet Union to establish bases far from Russia. This was in order to overstretch it. So if Saudi Arabia and India, who are very close to America, if they're joining BRICS, if I was China, I'd be very worried. I'd be very, very careful, right? But you've got to also bear in mind, Sheikh, BRICS largely exists on paper.
Right.
Tangibly, what do they do? So yes, it talks a lot about the dollar. It talks a lot about undermining the dollar. I'm going to be honest with you. I've been hearing about the dollar's demise from when I was in university in the late 1990s. Right. I've been hearing about the demise of the dollar from the Gulf rulers, from Latin American leaders, from China and Russia. And still the Chinese currency, there's more British pound and euros and the Australian dollar used in the world than the Chinese currency. There's a long way to go for that to happen. What China and Russia are doing is showcasing we have an alternative bloc. We've got Brazil, a power in Latin America. We've got South Korea, a leader from the global south. You've got China and you've got Russia as well. Now they're saying, look, we've got Saudi Arabia, we've got Argentina. Great.
Means
okay,
nothing.
How much money are you investing in the third world? A couple of billion? IMF is putting more money. What international issues are you shaping? The two-state solution is a Western solution. Syria is a Western solution. African aid, there's still more money coming from the West. So what you're finding is BRICS is saying a lot. They haven't delivered on anything yet. Now, they could get there in the future. It is possible they can get there. But to do that, you need to be united as a bloc. You need to have the same vision for the world. The only common vision BRICS has is, I would say, it's just a vision China and Russia have, which is there should be alternative rules in the world, not just the Western rules. That's something China and Russia believe. South Korea, South Africa, Brazil, and India have more closer relationship with America than they do with China and Russia.
You don't see any
this
of the
organization exists. It exists on paper, which is fine, but at the moment, tangibly, they haven't delivered on anything yet. Once they start tangibly delivering, then I would say, okay, now it's a competitor. Now it's trying to push out the West and it's trying to do stuff.
So you don't see anything leading to World War III at this point?
So I don't. However, I would say the way world wars have started in the past was you had two countries who've got differences. You've got broader powers that see each other as competitors. And all it takes is one issue and then everybody start joining and it escalates. If you look at World War One, what was it? You had the Serb terrorists who assassinated the heir to the throne of the Austria-Hungary Empire. Austria-Hungary Empire was an ally of Germany, and Serbia was an ally of Russia. Russia, Germany were two competitors. On Russia's side, you had France and you had Britain, and on the German side, you had a few other countries. So when this issue happened in the Balkans, the Germans used it to intervene and weaken Serbia, and it brought in the other powers. World War II was just a rerun again of the same thing. You had issues which were then used by the broader powers. So today that is there. America and the West view, they made the rules for the world, and China and Russia are trying to establish an alternative order. At the moment, apart from Ukraine, so Ukraine has the possibility of being a global thing. But what you find is China was actually quite critical of what Russia did. China is not even supporting Russia with arms and equipment. Russia is dealing with the war completely itself.
They didn't want to,
yeah. And China knows any conflict with Taiwan, don't expect Russia to come and help. You're on your own. They say they support each other, but physically they're not. So any of these conflicts can. So really, the way you get wars is when you have competing powers. Now it's down to them. Do you want this to escalate or do you not want it to escalate? Now, is it in China's interest for there to be World War III? Is it in China's interest for her to even be involved in the war? The last war China was involved in was 1979 in Vietnam. China's not fought a war since then. America's been involved in multiple wars since 2000 and it hasn't performed well. Yeah, just 2 years ago, the Taliban humiliated them when they left Afghanistan. So it's not in anyone's interest for this to escalate. However, when you've got competing powers, world war is possible. But my answer to you is, I don't see it on the horizon, but I wouldn't write it off completely.
Right. Now, the only thing
I was saying this to someone the other day. The two world wars were fought in Europe. It's been 75 years plus since the last world war. We are due another one in Europe.
No, it's just that,
and differences are there. I don't know if you saw the right wing got to power in Holland last week. Yeah, people are very unhappy with the European Union. They're unhappy with the state of Europe. Europeans have a big problem with immigrants coming in. The Europeans hate the Russians at the moment. So all the seeds for war are there. All you need is a right winger to come to power and deal with it. And in Germany, the right wing are doing well. In Holland, the right wing have come to power. You could argue Donald Trump is a right winger. You've got right wingers in all the right places. So all the ingredients are actually there for a world war.
That would
and
be a
we're
very
due one as
interesting
well.
discussion, inshallah. No,
I mean, look,
but
it's possible.
2 minutes, because Asr, we have to Asr here. We haven't played Asr. We have
Okay.
literally 25 minutes before Maghrib. But I wanted to ask you this one question here. So if there is, okay, what does Black Swan mean in this situation with the Muslim armies, Muslim region? Meaning, a Muslim
Black
movement takes
Swan would
power?
mean, yeah, so Black Swan would mean there's an intervention by someone from the Muslim countries. In this context, it would mean that. So it could be someone in the army. It could even be the ruler decides we're going to arm the Palestinian people. Because if you arm the Palestinian people, it messes up the balance in the region. At the moment, the Gazan people have no way to respond. The rockets they have are not good enough.
Right.
You can easily change that. How did the Northern Alliance win in Afghanistan? America armed them. America supported them.
Right.
How did the Mujahideen win in the 1980s against the Soviet Union? They got support from Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and America. If the Muslim rulers, anyone, if they support the Palestinians with arms,
the idea
with missiles,
that when you talk to Pakistanis and things like this, oh, they're so far, it should be the Egyptians who are arming them. Let's say the Egyptians won't arm them, the Syrians won't arm them, whatever. But the least that the Pakistanis could do is actually just arm the resistance.
Yeah. And they've done that before. Pakistan has armed the Kashmiris.
Yeah.
Pakistan has armed and supported the Mujahideen in the northern areas. Pakistan in the 1990s armed and supported the Bosnians.
Right.
Pakistan takes part in the UN peacekeeping missions around the world. So they're not doing anything they don't do. Turkey is one of the largest armies in NATO, so it gets deployed around the world. And through the UN and European peacekeeping mission, it gets deployed. And Turkey is involved in Syria, it's involved in Libya, it's involved in Azerbaijan. So they're already doing it. So what I'm saying or what we're saying is nothing different or new to what they're already doing. So in a way, this is the Muslim rulers or the Muslim governments getting involved is not a black swan event. That's business as usual. It's just on this issue, they're saying we're on leave at the moment. Business is closed. Yeah, we're not available. Out of office. That's what they're saying. But on the other issues, the office is open. They're involved. So this reality we're talking about is not as far-fetched as people are thinking. It's actually there. And who's to say someone has enough? Someone in the Muslim world has enough? The armies are watching this.
All right, Sheikh. With this, we're going to have to end this program. This is, it's very, always when you're, Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. It's a very, you always put the proper picture and present it in a way that people can understand and trying to understand, politics and understanding the political situations in general. It's a very, it's not everybody's cup of tea, but you make it simple for people to understand these things because I think now, more than ever, it's a requirement for the Muslims to understand these things so that this awareness comes around so the Muslims understand what can be done and what should be done, and even at the same time understand the games being played against them.
Yes.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Jazakallah khair for your time. And until next time.
Until next time.
Inshallah Rabbil Alameen. And for the rest of the brothers and sisters, remember the ayah as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, at the end of the day, the affair belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allahu ghalibun ala amrih walakinna aksar an-nas la ya'lamun. And so we don't know what could happen, and it's obviously change is overdue, and anything is possible. Any situation could occur. There are many sincere people in the Muslim world, in the armies, in many places of importance. And the dua and the work that we need to do is to get them to understand that you're going to have to face Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This dunya is not forever. And what should matter to you is the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal and your accountability on the day of judgment in Jannah and Nar. So we continue to remind ourselves and you that at the end of the day, all of this work is to build the Muslim minds, to build the Muslim mentalities, to remind the Muslims that this ummah was sent as mercy to mankind, as guidance to mankind. And we must play that role. And if we don't, then Gaza is just another symptom of many symptoms. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
لن يطول الظلام ديننا لن يضام نحن جيل الهمام نحن فينا عمر لا 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 لا, لا لن يطول الظلام ديننا لن يضام نحن جيل همام نحن فينا عمر صبح بدا نور ظهر نجم وشمس وقمر ألقى على الدنيا الدرر هذا عمر هذا عمر كل البرايا تنتظر أيامه البيض الغرر كي تستفيد من العبر هذا عمر هذا عمر لا لن تدوم الجراح بل سيأتي الصباح نحن أهل الكفاح نحن فينا عمر لا لن تدوم